Laughter emerges in the realization that all along the original was derived. Judith Butler.
Bending, Not Breaking. Season 5, Episode 5. Peacekeepers. And welcome back to another episode of Bending Not Breaking. I'm Sunshine.
And I'm Ben.
And we've got so much to talk about today.
So much to
More
talk about.
Korra.
Yeah.
More Korra. Season 2, arguably everyone's favorite season of The Legend of Korra.
Yeah.
And we
totally.
today we have something special.
We do have something special. In fact, we have someone special.
Always. A friend of the podcast, if you will.
A friend of the podcast.
Ben, who do we have here with us today?
This is round 3. Round 3. Third time's a charm. Actually, we exile you from the island after your third time. So that's not true. But we will be inviting back Cameron. He's back with us. He's a super fan, Cameron.
Hello, super fan, friend of the pod.
That's
all
right.
of these titles. I would like a pin.
Yeah. little pin to wear.
Yeah, just a
something
little.
I've
friend
been
of
on
the
Bending Not
pod.
Breaking. Three-time guest.
One of those like really tacky ones where like each of the letters is one of the element symbols or something like that. They're gonna.
Oh.
I assume these go
Merch.
on your resume.
Maybe we'll give you White Lotus.
Ooh,
a little White Lotus
If
pen.
yeah. Once you master all 4 elements,
Oh,
we should
God,
go
we're
back
not
and check
there
your
yet.
devotions to
Oh,
see what
yeah.
elements
What
you
elements
have.
are
element, you have to log one.
Nope, I can't remember.
Yeah. Oops. Well, in that case, we'll
Listen,
just have to
call
start
in.
over
We're
this
standing
time.
by. If you got the answer, call in.
Yeah.
That's right. Send
you-
us a little.
First one to tweet with the elements that Cameron has been a part of. I will send you a holiday card because that sounds fun.
That's an incentive.
You'd have to make a holiday card.
Sure, I'll do it.
I come
For
home.
the-
I come home. He's just like posing and like by himself on the couch.
You pick it up. You're like, Ben, you
I'm
forgot
like,
to set
"Ben."
the timer.
Yeah. There's nothing. There's no picture being taken.
Oh man.
All right. Well,
Wow.
I would like to start by validating you on your aversion to state fair and like rinky-dink
hate him.
rides.
Yes.
That pack up and fit into a box. I also would not. I don't trust my life, my being, to a roller coaster that fits in a box.
No.
I just don't.
It needs to be drilled into the ground, and thousands of people need to have ridden it before I get on it. Then I'll go on Space Mountain. I feel like every time I go on Space Mountain, it gets a
I
little
love
bit more
Space
light
Mountain.
in there.
Wait, yeah, Space Mountain's good.
Super drilled
That's what I'm
in.
saying. It's been there.
Oh.
People have ridden it. But every year, I feel like the lights get a little bit lighter in that building, so people can actually see
what's going on.
what's going on around them. And be like, don't
put your hands
stand
up.
Don't do that. That's a silly thing for you to do right now.
Please don't.
You are going under railings regularly.
Yeah, really dangerous.
Sorry for ruining the Disney magic. Let's get back to the Universal side of things and go back to Nickelodeon
Yeah.
and The Legend of Korra,
Ding ding
season
ding.
2, episode 5.
That is correct.
Peacekeepers.
Yeah.
A lot happens.
Yeah.
I feel like I say that every episode, and it's because it's almost like 22 to 23 minutes of things happen in every episode.
There are some episodes where it's just like, man, 20 minutes went
If
by. I'm
only-
like, what happened?
If only somebody could tell us what happened, say in like 30 seconds.
We're not there yet.
Sounds like
but at some
Sunshine
point we'll
should
get
do
there.
that.
Before we jump into that,
Oh, sorry. I thought I was going to be a Segway champion.
he's been on the podcast 3 times, thinks he knows the format perfectly. First off, we have a specific lens that we're watching this through. And Cameron, you picked that lens. What is it? And can you talk a little bit
And
about
why
it?
is it?
Yeah. What is it? Why is
Why?
it? Where is it?
Why is Gamora? So this lens is performativity. And honestly, in watching the episode, I was struck right away by this lens when Korra leads the peaceful protest, and that put me in mind of summer 2020 when our country had a lot going on in the way of peaceful protests. And how that particular movement has kind of lulled, and so that obviously, some people were doing these things performatively and not in the true spirit of the movement, which is. So that struck me right away, and as I kept watching, I mean, we'll talk about it, but performativity seemed like a good fit for this episode, and it really made some things stick out to me in a new way.
Very exciting. I think that this is like something we've kind of approached from different angles, but never have discussed just on this specific thing. So I'm kind of excited to pick it apart because it's kind of complicated in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting. I'm excited to do that.
Absolutely, because when you look at, anytime someone's making a performance, there can be several different variations as to why that's happening. And so sometimes there is the safety aspect. Like, I'm behaving this way because if I do not, something could happen to me, or I could be putting myself in an unsafe situation. Or it is I'm behaving this way because I want people to look at me and think that I'm a good person. And we see a little bit of all of those things kind of wrapped up in this episode.
Well, it
everything's a performance.
It begs the question of, like, obviously you have what we tend to think of as performativity, and it's usually in a negative connotation, but is there, and I don't have this answer, is there sometimes where performativity can be positive? And I was like, I really don't know the answer there.
And so is there a difference between performativity and just performing? Right?
Yeah.
And so, because customer service in my head is typically a performance.
True.
Right? I act differently when I get a complaint on the phone than maybe I would just like sitting in my house. And so is that a real version of me, or is that a fake version, or is like, no, that's how I want to engage with the world when I'm in that space, and is that inauthentic or not? And so, yeah, there'll be a whole lot for us to kind of dabble into.
One of the things that is interesting in thinking about, like, is it possible, and
it's possible
for a plain yellow.
Thank you, Cameron.
Royalties.
Hey, Roger and Hammerstein.
We accept.
Sponsor us.
I think one of the things to think about with performance also is what is the difference between doing something that is like what are the ethics around this as well? Because can you do something and perform something in such a way that, like, no, this performance is achieving something that is good, versus this performance is like, or is it always viewed as like, no, is it a form of lying to perform, right? And so that's what's the difference between performing where it's lying and where it's not, right? Where it's authentic and where it's not, right? And so I think that's a line.
Inauthentic with a purpose. Like, what is that?
Exactly. When we're trying to fit in and we're trying to perform that way, is that ethically okay? And what is that? And when is it okay? And when is it not? There's just it's pretty complicated. There's a lot there. Yeah.
So thank you for picking such a lens, Cameron. Can't wait.
You're welcome.
Yeah. It'll be fun.
Now.
It's already fun. It's more fun listening to Sunshine try to get everything from the 30 seconds of the whole show into 30 seconds.
I've been schooled in segues. Thank you.
It's literally my least favorite part of every episode.
But you're so bad at it.
I am caught up, though, and it is your turn.
It is absolutely my turn.
See, this is why we need him along, because I just assume it's you every time.
Absolutely isn't.
But I mean, it kind of is. Specifically right now, though. On your ready.
Yeah, I'm ready.
On your mark.
Yeah.
Ready, set, go.
Lynn makes a jab at Korra and informs Mako the Southern Water Tribe is having a peace march, and Varric, who is always performing, brings Bolin along to tour the city at night, and Milo tries to train some lemurs, and Tenzin offers to help, and Mako sees the Southern Water Tribe building get bombed, and thinks it's not actually the Northern Water Tribe, and Bolin thrives in his interview during a pro-bending night, and Varric knows how to exploit it. Korra gets upset with the president, and then upset with Mako, and then upset with more people, and then she tries to get people to come join her cause, and it doesn't work out, and then she gets dark spirit eaten.
Ding, ding, ding.
I think I did all right.
Yeah.
Who are Deska and Esna anyway?
Let's be real. Dark Spirit still would have shown up without them. So
yeah, Definitely Deska and Desna for sure. What?
No, I'm saying like they were pretty irrelevant. Like they made her go on the run for a little bit, but the Dark Spirit was still
Yeah, I don't know these characters.
there.
It's fine. We're getting there. Who wants to talk about performance first? Who wants their moment to be first? Because I don't want it to be me.
Oh, I also don't want it to be me.
Cool. So
Ooh.
let's talk about Bolin.
So we're going straight to Bolin.
In the
Okay.
interview.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think this is a good moment, because I think this is an example of, I don't believe that Bolin is wrong, right? Like, the way that he is performing in this moment, which anytime you get in an interview situation like that, you're on, and he knows how to play the fans, and he knows that if I get confused and yell Bending and Republic City and fans, that the crowd goes wild, and he does that. And I don't think that causes harm to anyone by engaging in that interview in that specific way. And so I think that's the first a good moment for us to say, if we're trying to figure out what performativity, is ethical or not ethical, how I think does it cause harm to others? It might be one way to look at that.
So I have a thought process there that's interesting. So there's a...
You're claiming your own thought process is interesting?
Yeah, I am.
Can't wait to hear it.
I think we'll be the judge of that.
Yeah,
Continue.
please.
Move forward.
So action is there, and inaction, there's something to parse out here, I think, when it comes to this performance, and whether, like, you asked whether it was good, right? Whether, and it
Sure.
seemed like you were like this, you were okay with this, as it seemed like that was your thought process,
sure.
right? And not doing something versus doing something. You were saying, like, this language doesn't hurt anybody. No one, like, it's such, like, along those lines. And so that to me feels like like there's a negative, in the sense that there is nothing being contributed, but rather I am not contributing anything other than, maintaining homeostasis, right? And then there's like a positive action that actually puts something in, right? And it seems like, to me, Bolin has an opportunity here to insert something that would help the culture grow and progress, along with, talking about things that are hard in public and doing, and like, it seems, and I wonder if there could have been more good done by not leaning into this performance. Like, what it's like, Bolin was comfort over authenticity.
Oh, I took it as validation, but yeah.
Like, right?
Comfort,
It's when you choose that comfort feeling, then what you're doing is you're not adding anything substantive, but you're also not, like, what, as you would say, like, you're not harming anybody.
When he lifted those things up, right? Here are the tough things that I went through, and then when he saw the crowd not respond in a certain way, then he shifts, right? And so how much is that similar to when we create a bid for connection with other people and don't get a response that is conducive to us to continue to share and be vulnerable?
I was going to
So
say,
we pull back and we say, okay.
when the barista at the coffee shop is like, "How are you?" and you're like, "Well, I'm dealing with a lot of existential things." You can't. It's not really the answer they're looking for. They're looking for, "Fine, how are you?" Or
So you get deer in the headlights.
And so you get deer in the headlights and you go, a little bit of creamer.
But no worries.
You know, like, can I, but things are good.
Yeah.
Just a little cream, please.
exactly. That's how I really identified with Bolin when he was just answering honestly. He was like, Civil War is tough.
I participated in a civil war.
And
I got dumped.
everyone's just crickets. And then he's like, "But I love Republic City." That is very much like when I'm like, "Well, I'm exhausted and anxious all the time." And the barista is just staring at me. And I'm like, "But it's fine." And we laugh together.
Right. It was that knowing laughter of like, aren't we all having an existential crisis right now?
Oh, yeah. I think, like, I totally feel this. And I also wonder, again, when is it, for me, not for anybody else, but for me, where is that line between, no, I'm going to not soften this discomfort, right? And I don't want to perform till we can just, like, so I want this to be real, right? Because at some point I wonder,
You asked me, I'm going to tell you. Like,
yeah, like, for me, it's like, it feels inauthentic, and I'm like, I don't want to have to make you comfortable all the time anymore, right? And I'm tired of it, especially with like after this pandemic year. It's just like I'm tired of pretending like I'm okay.
Yep.
For you. And no longer am
'Cause
I
I'm
willing
not.
to do it. Like,
Is anyone?
And like again, it seems like in both of these situations, I'm still convinced that performance is not helpful. Right? In these situations, it seems unhelpful.
What is the objective? Is the objective to have an honest conversation, or is the objective to
Get through
just
the day without people
have
looking
the
at
small
you?
talk? Like, is it the societal norm of I am supposed to ask you how you're doing because this coffee's taking a minute and I don't want to just sit and stare at
Don't
you
want to be rude
until this happens, right?
Yeah, because I think back to customer service, right? Someone calls and has a complaint about a program or something that I help oversee. I genuinely don't want to. My initial first response, my first draft might be to be like, that is your problem, right? Like, that is something that you are dealing with that I can't help you with.
And we know Korra loves a first draft.
Yes, we do.
It is the thing I most identify with her on. I
leans into
strongly commit.
And for me, my authenticity, I know is that's really not how I want to respond. Like, if I responded with that, I would not feel good about what I am doing and putting out into the world. And so I genuinely want to defuse the situation, listen to the person, and get them to that point of resolution because I think that that's going to be a better situation for everyone involved. And so that requires me to do a little bit of a performance, like in that moment. And so I don't think in that instance, I don't think that performance is taking away from my authenticity. I think I'm living into the values that I want to put out into the world.
Right.
And so that requires me to perform past my first draft, I guess might be one way to kind of word that.
Revise.
Yeah. Because, yes, it would be very easy to snap back at someone and say, like, well, you forgot to register, so what do you want from me?
What is your desired outcome here?
But that's not helpful, and that's only going to, increase tension or anything else with them, and that's not. So I think in those there are moments where performing, even if it's getting you to that aspect of the values that you want to live into, sometimes that's required. But maybe that's not performing. Maybe that's, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
No.
Great.
I don't want to. You nailed it.
I don't want to perform a fake answer when I'm like, nah, I'm good.
But is there not times where, like, the way that you initially feel in that moment is that first draft? That's where your feelings are because you haven't had a chance to process them.
I think that's why I struggle, is that I feel that taking a minute to revise my first draft then means I'm being inauthentic. And it is part of, like, I have to take stock and be like, no, it's okay to just, like, take a moment.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes taking that break, revising that first draft, allows us to be the authentic version of ourselves that we really do want to be. I think.
Fortunately, my husband now sometimes realizes that this is your first draft.
Yeah.
Take a minute.
That's important in relationships.
Try again.
But that's also a real thing because I think there's some people we hear frequently in conflict with our peers and our loved ones of like, I'm just being honest, or I'm snapping back because you can't be mad at me because this is how I'm feeling. Which and some of those things are
I'm in this photo and I don't like it.
Right. Well, and I have been too, because there have been times where I've mentioned something to my partner and she's said, hey, is that what you wanted to say in that moment? And I'm like, no.
Technically,
that
yes,
was not...
that is what I wanted to say, but I do regret it now.
Like, that's not...
Well, think about how good of a tool that question is, though.
Right.
To ask when someone says something rude or sassy or sarcastic or whatever it may be, you're like, just want to confirm that's what you meant to say. Right. All of a sudden, it puts them back on the person who said it, and they're like, "Oh, no, that was rude."
Probably and then if they double down, maybe that's the boundary.
Or they double down, and it's like,
yes, and you're like, okay, cool,
that
good,
is what you meant to say.
Good to know.
Enlightening.
Did you mean to perform that, or did you mean that to be real?
And I think that's one of those things. That's again, it sometimes it feels like it can be a performance because it's not our initial thought, and I would argue that like you get to take stake and say, I was acting outside of the values that I want to put forward, and so I'm taking time to live into what I want to push forward.
Right.
And sometimes we want to push forward values, but we don't want to do the action that gets us there.
Yeah.
Thus, often performance, right? It's like, I don't want to do the action, so I'm going to do something that is going to make it seem as though this action is something I would do. Right? That's what performance does. Is what it does is performance creates identity. Right? And that's really important to think about, is because when I am acting a certain way, and I think performative acts, when you look at the definition, it talks about a performative act is something that is done that is not just true, but is also affecting what is true. Meaning, when I perform something, I'm doing it literally, and it's making you think that I will continue to act that way, right? When in reality, it may be outside my values. It may be something that I'm only doing to make it, like, it's anytime.
It may be rehearsed, and if I'm
exactly
like living authentically moment to moment, then sometimes I'm not going to respond that way.
Exactly. And so when you continue to do something performatively, and I'm going to start to believe that that is who you are, because that's who we are, what we do.
Which
Those
is
are
usually the
judgments we make
objective
about
of people that are acting in a performative way. I wish to put this out into the world, even though that's not necessarily how my brain is wired.
Well, and that begs the question: if you do something enough, even as if it is performative to start with, does it become you? Do those actions become you?
That's the question, because I would argue the answer is yes.
Like, if you're doing something often enough, that is authentically you.
Yes. Yeah. If you yes, if you do a thing enough times, then it forms a habit, and that becomes who you are. I suppose specifically what I was referring to is like people that, get leaned on for their energy or their humor. But their humor, is all about context, or maybe it's responsive, and then they have to, for me specifically, I get told, like, at a former job of mine, I had to host a lot of things. They were like, "You're funny and energetic. Do this thing. Perform, monkey." And I was like, "All right, I will." But I had huge anxiety about it because I don't feel that I'm funny moment to moment. So I ended up writing a lot of things down. And is that authentic? No, because those things I wrote down to say that I thought were like humorous, which were, but kind of like Bolin, I knew they would get the reaction I wanted from the audience specifically. That I still don't think is who I am. It didn't feel authentic to me.
So funny. Like, this is really interesting. So I did a little bit of research this semester talking about what makes a person, and there's a thing that it has been experimented on when it comes to memory and what is within the body and what is outside of the body. And the question is, can something outside of our body be a part of what makes a person? So if you take out a memory example, so someone who has full capacity, full memory, what happens is, so you say, "Hey, I'm going to tell you this time where I want you to meet us on Thursday." And what happens is they store that in their brain, and then they pull that information out. They wake up on Thursday like, "Oh, it's Thursday. Oh, I'm going out tonight." And that's something that they remember, right? And so the other side of that is if you have someone who has, short-term memory loss, so they have to write things down. Right? And so what they do is you tell them, "Okay, we need you to meet somewhere on Thursday." They write it in this notebook, right? And on Thursday, they look at this notebook and say, "Oh, it's Thursday. Oh, I have to go to this thing." So what's the difference between these two people? Like, one retrieves this memory from an external source, but
I'm very impressed by that person.
That's their memory, right? They are able to go to this external source. And for most of us, that's like our cell phones, our calendars, our electronic things.
Right.
What's the difference between what makes a person in terms of we just used the only difference is body, right?
Right.
So the question is
the medium by which you are recalling this information.
Yes. But it's the exact same information. It's the exact same thing. And a lot of the arguments are saying that the person who does that, and that book becomes a part of the person.
Okay.
Because it's suggesting that people are relationally constituted in a lot of these things. Anyway, long story short, that's what the article does. And so when I think about performance and you writing these things down and you retrieving them in order to do them, I don't know that makes it any less authentic.
Yeah.
Because you had to come up with it in the first place.
Even
right?
though
Or
it
had
was
to
performance.
You had to initiate it.
Right? And so to me, it still feels very authentically you. And in the moment, you are choosing even more, potentially more thoroughly than you would in a first draft. Right? You have filtered that into the most you that you want to be in this moment.
Yeah.
Right? And so that performance may not have felt like the authentic you outside of this performance, but it was fully you in this performance. Does that make sense? Am I reaching here? How does that sound? What does that resonate?
I understand.
Yes, I think that can work. I think that you again, as most of the lenses we look through, typically they're a tool, right? Like performance can be a tool. Because I think that you could equally write those things, and you're the person who's coming up with these things, and you're the person who's jotting this down, but you might know, like, I wouldn't say this joke in my friend group or with me, but I'm doing this for
right. Well, the situation wouldn't come up in my
and
friend
so,
group.
Like,
yeah.
I'm writing a joke that is something that I would never really engage with, but I'm doing
then
this.
you use it.
Yeah.
That it's still you that's using it. So how does that make it so it's not you? You know?
Right.
And so it's like we are still what we do. Who we are is what we do. And when we perform, what we're doing is we are shaping who we are. And so what seems to be performance, I'm just performing. What I think I'm arguing is that even when you're performing, you are still putting you out into the world.
Mm-hmm.
Right. You're setting what will become habits or traits of yours.
Even if it's like, well, I'm just performing, it's not going to be that harmful, but you know it's harmful. It is still harmful, right? And so, like, how we perform and what we do still has a massive effect in the world. And I think that's important.
Yeah, performance itself is not a blank, like, hands off, like, I'm free from anything because I'm performing, right? That doesn't make you free of criticism. That doesn't make you free of the problematic things that you do when performing. You don't get to fall back on, like, but it was a performance.
But
and
I'm not a bending supremacist.
Yeah.
I'm friends with benders.
Well, and so when we talk about, if we're leaning into the the performance aspect of things, we can't not talk about Varric.
Oh, he is
man.
the performer of the episode.
And yet reveals exactly who he is in this episode.
He does.
We know exactly what he's doing. Like, it's not a secret of when it comes to his behavior.
Right.
Hey, inviting someone out to go, have you ever seen Republic City at night? Well, I'm from here. Well, okay, the real Republic City.
But have you really?
I'm going to bring you out. Seems like a welcoming gesture. Seems like an inclusive gesture. But we know that that's Varric acts this way to go, I don't know what I can get from you yet, but I can get something
I want to figure
from
you out, yeah.
And so, come hang out with me.
And, I mean, this is when Varric we see him talk to the president, and he's like, I was a big contributor to his campaign. I contributed to the other guy, too. Gotta hedge your bets. And that was the instant, like, oh, Varric is who he is the whole time. Like, Varric is...
Unapologetically.
Both,
and I think what's really interesting about analyzing this performance in particular is the people like him because of the way he performs. Like, they find him charming. They find him funny.
You're talking about people in the fandom?
What an eccentric businessman.
Both fandom and show.
Yeah.
Like, everybody loves Varric in this show. I mean, of course, Unalaq doesn't like him because, duh. But, like, it seems like everybody else is charmed by Varric. And, like, here we go. It seems as though he's giving us face value, telling us everything that's on his mind, but because of culture and the way that we engage with people, we laugh that stuff off.
Right.
We're like, oh, he's just being funny, because if that were true, that'd be really scary. Mm-hmm. And no one wants to go there.
Turns out it is true.
Turns out it's true.
Super true.
And you should latch and listen to people when they speak, because you'll learn a lot.
When we see this performance too, the brainstorming performance, right?
Oh, man.
Everything he does he did not need to do those things to move the chess
I
pieces
think he
into
likes
place.
the performance too, though.
He did the pepper and the hanging but he could have easily been like, we want to do this with Asami's machines, and we'll do this for Korra. That's the thing you could, like, he knew the moves that needed to be made. He intentionally said, I'm going to perform this in a way to make me seem like I'm eccentric and crazy and not really thoughtful about these types of things. No, I think that was clearly a performance.
I think it's way more intentional. Like, because I think that on the first time, second time, even like third time watching through, when I watch it, I'm like, he seems like just like, so. It's like chaos for him. But I think it is so. I think he's playing chess, and he is like, I got all of these things planned out, which makes it seem a lot more sinister and even more duplicitous for these performances, right?
Yeah.
And that's. I still don't know, is this truly just chaos, or is this something where he is playing chess?
If it is, he never drops it on the show. He remains that kind of, organized chaos throughout from season 2 through 4.
Yeah, he's going overboard almost all the time, and to be able to say, is he doing this to paint a picture of himself or to create an image of himself, or is he doing that because it's just kind of the way he is?
I took him at face value with
Right.
it. Is that it is, I think he, plays it up a little bit, but I do think, to your point earlier, it is still part of his authentic self, and that might be why, he maintains that personality through season 3 and season 4.
Yeah.
Well, because his authentic self is one who manipulates, right? So, like, he does that often, and so is that authentically who he is? And so
Right.
you perform enough, that's part of your authenticity at that point.
True.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's just a lot there. I think that's, yes. Yeah. I think I'm getting to this idea where, again, I think about Varric and this, like, constant, who he is how he continuously is performing, and we start to realize that, oh, this is a part of who he is, and we start to, again, understand him a little bit better when we realize that these performances are who he is, rather than trying to suss out, like, who's the inner Varric here? Is he good? Is he bad? And it's you can't drop it to that question. It's a false binary.
Right.
He is all of these things, right? He is all of these things.
He does good
and more.
things. He does bad things.
It is whatever he views is going to benefit him in the long run, regardless of the. He is chaotic he's chaotic neutral,
especially
right?
this season. Yeah, he is very self-interested.
When we talk about performative works, right? This is where, like, he's going to invite you out, or he's going to give money, or he's going to buy your business, or he's going to be supportive, but he's only doing it
for what it gives him.
For what it gives him in the long run.
For how it changes the social reality.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But people view him, whether it's the fandom or inside of the show itself, people view him as he gives money, he runs philanthropies.
Is he a parasite or a symbiote? Like,
Right.
like Asami needs Varric. Future Industries probably would go under if she didn't do what she does this season with him. Like,
But it also wouldn't go under had he not done what he did.
true.
So tough. Yeah. Yikes.
Who else?
indeed.
Such an unexpectedly complex comic relief character.
Yes. Yeah. I wonder if they intended that to be as
The
complicated
morally
as it is.
like, because I don't know who's more ethically incorrect the majority of the time, Varric or the Red Lotus at certain moments throughout,
or
the,
Unalaq,
like, that's right.
So,
Well, Unalaq is part of the Red Lotus.
well,
I'm sorry, spoiler alert.
yeah. Wow. We're jumping like goodness.
Still, that, like, phone call scene that comes
Oh
later
my
in the
God.
series. He's like, oh,
good.
Unalaq's calling again.
Ugh, this guy.
Who else? Who else are we talking about when it comes to performing?
Oh, we have to talk about Unalaq.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unalaq, I mean, I've got so much to say
Okay.
about
Okay, let's start with item number one.
Here's the list that we wrote down. This is authentically Cameron writing all of these things down, and
I mean, he was a huge part of why I wanted to talk about performativity, because he is, I mean, I would like to be clear that at this moment I say not all people that are religious are this way. However, he is very clearly an archetype that does exist in our world. And specifically, to me, Unalaq is a megachurch pastor. Like, he will promise you very specific things. He promises Korra, like, I can teach you spirit bending.
Only I.
Right, exactly. And he has this very he promises this gift to Korra. But obviously, as we know, it turns out to be for his own methods, his own gains. This particular episode, we see him say, we have to protect the spirit portal at all costs. That seems like a selfless thing to do because he's still pretending, he's still performing to be interested in what is best for the world and what is best for the Southern Water Tribe specifically, but he has his very own specific goal in mind. He is interested in himself gaining more power.
Well, that's such a good example of performative language, is we need to protect the spirit portal at all costs. At face value, that is true, right? So performative language is not like true or false. So that's not something that you're trying to use when you qualify performative language. It's what does the performative language communicate, right? It's to everyone, it's making him seem as though he wants to protect the spirit portal because he's a good person and all this jazz, right?
He's a very spiritual man.
But as we know, that is not how it is. And so what it does is, again, it's this form of lie, right? And I think that's where performance is really, really complicated, especially in real life. It's really complicated.
Yeah.
I get the same vibes, Cameron. I mean, it's the speaking in absolutes, the we're doing this for your own benefit, and this is why we do these things, and
right.
But it's really to just cover up the dirty work.
It's
that's
tradition.
I hate it. I hate traditions. Not like traditions.
I love traditions.
Because ritual and traditions, Casper to Kyle, we love him. And
some traditions are very, very lovely, and some of them need to die.
Traditions are lovely as long as you can think critically about why they happen.
Yeah.
Like, as long as there is a reason beyond we've always done it.
Agreed.
And that's, I think, that, but Unalaq hides behind, we do this for tradition to get his own. I mean, he's a master manipulator. He's a very smart man. He knows exactly what piece of information to bring to drive a wedge between Korra and the people she cares about and the people that care about her.
Well, and I think this is such a good articulation of how we see politicians act in our world, right? Like, this is like Unalaq is supreme politician here in saying, I know exactly what I need to say in order to make the people think that I'm right, right? And that's basically episodes 1 through 4.
And they'll never know.
And they'll just have never. And then his own brother was fooled by this performance, right? And it's again has been his whole life, right? And so when they figure out this is how he is, he doubles down and goes even harder, right? Because that's how he's always lived in the world. Because some people still believe him. Yikes. Yeah, scary.
Imagine promising something and then delivering something completely different.
Oh, never.
Never. Who would do that?
Who would do that?
Don't forget, student loan payments start back up on January of this upcoming
January
year.
What? January 1st?
Yep. Get ready.
Yay. Love that. Well,
Korra doesn't have any student loans.
Speaking of presidents, let's talk about President Raiko for a minute.
Yeah, let's do it.
Performative politician.
Right?
There's the very obvious, he makes Korra pose for a picture with a smile before he's like, I'm not going to give you what you want.
Not giving you anything, yeah. I think another thing that's interesting about Raiko is thinking about his character as it develops, not just in this episode, but like in the comics and things like that. And he just gets worse.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it's really, like, he continues to be
it's just a big old,
don't like,
bad, gross iceberg.
Yeah. So
why does he remind me of Full Metal Alchemist? You know what I mean?
He looks a little bit like Wrath.
Yeah.
Or depending on which
Full Metal Alchemist you're watching.
Yeah. The Fuhrer, King Bradley, I should say. Wrath and Full Metal, and then Pride and Brotherhood.
Spoil? Did you just spoil seasons?
All of it. All of it.
And it came out in 2003.
Yeah, right. If you're behind, you should.
Sorry,
you
There's only so much you can do for spoilers.
We try so hard.
I mean, you've had 18 years.
You got so far.
Also, you should watch those shows because they're amazing.
I just started Castlevania for the first time.
Oh, I love Castlevania.
I'm enjoying it. I was really caught off guard with season 1 being only 4 episodes. And
right?
I was like, I'm on season 2?
Oh.
Did I
miss something?
I started watching when only season 1 was out, and I was like, "That's it.
There's no more. There was a movie."
Exactly.
But yeah, enjoying that. So But Raiko, President Raiko.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Right?
I think, again, this is what happens when we have a political system that is, majority vote. And what happens is it becomes more important when there is not a limited term, right? It becomes more important to impress people to stay in power than it is to do things that are actually beneficial. And so what we see Raiko doing is he's caring about re-election. And so he is like, no, we're going to do what is easiest, what is most comfortable, that everybody likes what's going on.
Right.
And this is performance to the max. I'm not going to let our armies do anything because I need our people to love like this current situation, right? So when we make these decisions with that in mind, it's really kind of changes the ethical game of like, do I do what is right or do I do what will get me reelected, which will help me do more things that are like semi not right because I'm going to keep performing.
Intent of the system versus reality of the system.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think performance is one of the reasons, like the feeling this compulsion to perform, to fit in, to buy people is not good. And as like the result is not good for many situations. I'm curious for you all, like where, like we're continuing to see how performance is meh in terms of ethics, but where is performance good? Like where do we see that, if at all?
In this episode specifically.
Yeah.
And then good in what way? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Bolin's performance is good in that the crowd stays hyped up for this sporting event that they're supposed to attend.
And you could argue builds, like, because with sports in general, right, you can argue that it builds, civic pride and community and a sense of belonging.
Sure.
And so, you could argue that Bolin, by getting everyone together and finding something to unify them in that stadium, gives them that sense of joy.
Yeah.
Because I think I've mentioned it before this season. One of the coolest things to me recently, after as the pandemic is what hopefully feels like on a latter end, but as concerts and things have come back, there was a moment that I went to a show recently, and the right chords hit, and everyone in the concert venue cheered, and it was just like, I've missed this. I've missed the collective joy of everyone being together and feeling this. And so you could argue that Bolin is providing that, similar to the way that a concert or an artist might do that as well. And
this brings up a really important question of like competing things, because what's more important, right? To in the long run, to help people learn how to talk about uncomfortable things in public, or continuing to create a culture in which it's expected to deflect from uncomfortable conversations.
Mm-hmm. Or is it a context thing, though, of like, again, to Sunshine's point about the environment that you're in, is a sporting event really the venue to talk about Civil War or your personal breakup, or like, is that the time and the place? Is that
yeah. No, I think that's a really important question to ask too. And so these competing like ethical obligations are there, right? What is asking the question of the greater good?
I see.
And it becomes one of these things where if you aren't asking yourself when you go into performance mode what your goal is, and whether it's competing obligations are worthy of, is this something that is should this my comfort be the priority in this situation? Mm-hmm. Should the fans' comfort be the priority in this? If you're not asking that in your performance, then you might be missing an ethical cue that's leading you astray.
We want to make sure we're lifting up like the false binary, and can it be both? Can you do both? Those are the things, because it doesn't necessarily have to be either or. But we've also, as we've said earlier, there are ways to perform for safety. There are ways to perform for the safety of others. There are ways to perform for, is this the right time to grab the microphone and steal this spotlight, from someone else who's we're celebrating in this moment? Because yes, things are important, and yes, things are worth talking about, but I think context, the why, and I think if we've hopefully, especially this season, I know we've talked about it, just the awareness piece of why am I doing this? The more we ask ourselves that question, in regards to performance, in regards to our values, in regards to the our first drafts. Why are we doing this? Is just a really nice question to ask yourself.
Yeah.
Just to check in, just to kind of like gauge the meter every now and then, right?
Yeah.
So just,
I recommend it.
hey, why am I doing this? Oh, because I like doing it. Is that a good enough reason to do it right now? Yeah, I think it is.
Sometimes, yes,
cool,
yeah.
I'm gonna keep doing it.
Right.
Well, and I think one of the things we see Mako asking this question in this episode, right? This both sides have a point thing where Raiko's like, "Hey, you know that you're supposed to tell me because
You've sworn an oath.
You've sworn this oath, and
You are a man of the law first before anything else." And that was the moment I was like, wrong.
Alert.
Well, because we've said this on the show before, but legality does not equal morality.
No.
Right? And so what's the moral thing to do versus what is the legal thing to do? And Mako is caught in multiple ways because what's the moral thing when he has sworn an oath?
Right, he's a cop.
Right?
He is a cop.
Which is why the system is broken. Because like he was led to do something that was ultimately not for the greater good, right? Because I would argue that Team Avatar's usually doing the better, greatest
the
good,
morally
right?
thing.
They mess
But
up? Yes.
But from his perspective, and I can't, I'm not saying this perspective is correct, but from his perspective, he has seen Korra make what he would consider to be incorrect choices and be pretty unreasonable these last few episodes with him in their personal relationship. So it's not surprising I completely understand why in that moment he would not choose his personal relationship with Korra over the oath of the president standing in front of him.
Yeah. Well, that's what's so interesting because you
Burn the system down.
You ask fans,
Yeah. That's a problem with this. There's a very flawed system.
Yeah. Yes. But I think what's interesting about that is when we start to judge these people for making decisions like this.
Yeah.
Right? Mako in this moment
The second it happened, I was like, come on, Mako.
Right? Super judgy. And I felt it too. I was feeling like, Mako, you...
And this is always where I land. So, from outside the show, when people get upset, because these are feelings... I get upset with Korra and how often she goes into, her first mindset.
Yep.
So often she goes into the binary of it's either me versus them, and these are the only two sides. Because even Mako at some point goes what is with you in sides? And so I'm super frustrated. However, I will argue tooth and nail that the writing and her character development and her as a character is engaging and very real, because this is a thing that people do regularly, right? Is get it back up against the wall and immediately go with their first draft and immediately go with an us versus them mentality.
Stop targeting me.
The audience can't hear that I've actually just been blank staring at you the entire time I'm talking.
That's, I think, what's so...
Been 30 seconds of me just no loss of eye contact.
Right.
But we see so many people get upset with Korra and Korra stinks as the Avatar and what a terrible show. And it's just because it made you feel something does not make it bad.
She's a very, she is a well-written character, objectively. She has good arcs in each season. I think there are valid critiques you can throw at this show.
Absolutely.
Korra being a badly written character is not one of them.
No.
Nope.
Cannot.
Because she's making you feel things the entire time. Because the amount of times I'm like, I swear, Korra?
If you don't like her, it's probably you have a friend exactly like her, and you're...
Or you might be
Or
exactly
it might
like
be
her.
a little bit closer
You're
to
the
home.
friend exactly like her.
Because the moment she's arguing with him, I'm like, this is so many shows that if there was just a therapist, it was like, hey, let's sit down and talk. We'd be like,
let's chat.
Wait, tell me how you're feeling. Because it is frustrating to see her go that, and that makes it honestly though. But the manipulation, the performance of the presidency, the performance of the politician alone, the way they have to engage with the world around them is I'm doing this for the benefit of me, and I'm doing it for the benefit of what I think is right.
Again, from
sometimes.
Raiko's perspective, while I personally disagree, he is the president of a nation that has literally nothing to do with this conflict. He is choosing not to invade another nation and enact his will upon a conflict within that nation.
Yeah, well, and is it because are they more like the UN? Is Republic City more like the UN, or is it more like a? In that case, I could see it being no, we need to go.
I'm pretty sure it feels more UN-y to me.
Oh, see, I took it more as like, this is America, this is the melting pot, which, like, well, America would definitely invade that country.
It depends. Is Unalak a socialist?
I think we both know he is
Because Republic
not.
City would be there in a heartbeat.
Oh, no.
So true.
Oh, look, we found a way to take all their resources. Socialism doesn't work.
See, guys, socialism's bad.
Oof.
Yikes. We have not talked about Tenzin and Milo and this
yeah.
episode. And so do we see performance and performativity in that aspect of this episode?
I did. I took this. I very much this particular viewing. I took this interpretation that Tenzin is just trying so hard to prove to himself that he can teach. That Korra didn't get rid of him because he was a bad teacher. Like he's trying
I wasn't
really
thinking about
hard.
this at all. That's interesting.
Trying really hard to go against that referendum, which she levels at him, where like you're a bad teacher and I'm leaving you. And that's how I took that. Like he saw this moment to like, I know how to teach. Milo, I'm gonna teach you how to teach. And then at the end, he's like, "Oh, I've created a monster."
So many lemurs.
You know, the way I'm thinking about performance is something that is interesting when you think about parenting, because when I imagine having a child and I believe I'm the type of person that would go and read about 15 parenting books. And I'd be like,
I'm sure you've already read 15 parenting
Does Brene
books
Brown
and
write a
some-
parenting book?
she does have an audio. Gifts of wholehearted parenting.
You almost made it through an entire episode. Cameron, you've ruined it.
But yeah, I have read parenting books. You're right. I would probably read more. But the reason I say it is because even though I feel like I'm going into like this idea of like imposter syndrome, where if I feel like I'm not a good parent, and I'm like, oh, I'm not good. I don't like. I shouldn't. Why do I have a child? Oh my gosh! And then they start reading these books and start, I'm not a good parent, but I'm gonna do this thing, and then that becomes that performance of like, oh, but I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna do it, and then they start to perform other ways to perform as a good parent. Mm-hmm. At what point does the person cease to become, oh, I guess I am a good parent, right? From this, I'm not a good parent, and that's a very perception-oriented question,
right?
Right?
Well,
because
what's the rubric? Like,
because you might look at that and be like, "You're an incredible parent." Like, wow, man, and I'd be like, "Oh no, I just read this book. I'm learning. I don't know anything.
You have no idea how hard I'm trying."
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
You don't know how hard, because this performance that I'm putting on is when I'm talking to this 3-year-old child. Like when I'm talking to Milo, right, who is just like all kinds, like I have to put on this, like I'm gonna put my parenting mask on. I'm gonna perform parenting for Milo.
I'm gonna make sure that
this is what Tenzin does. And Tenzin, you see him with no filter while he's watching Milo.
Yep.
And then he starts talking to Milo. The filter is
classic
there,
over reward,
right? And and he goes into it, and he has this like. So I think when we filter and choose to code switch and fit in and change what we're doing is we're performing. But again,
oh, can we put a pin and come back to code switching?
Yeah. So my question is this performance that Tenzin is putting on as, oh, I'm gonna be a good teacher. I'm gonna do this and perform this way, or I'm gonna be a good parent.
Yeah.
It makes him a good parent. It makes him a good teacher.
And that's because we think of the exhausted parent, right? Whose child comes in and maybe does a couple things to push the buttons, and they've had a long day, and they've done all these things to prepare for the holidays, and
Pema.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Pema.
And so all this,
Say it again.
Pema. And so all this stuff has happened. So they're on their last. Like their last dial is right there. The tank is almost empty. And in those moments, it's so easy to sit there and say, like,
I can't perform this
I can't
anymore.
perform. And they do, right? And so the question of whether or not, like, it's a performance is, no, are you just a good parent? Because that's you're modeling the right behaviors
Right.
and you're showing up and being present. And so even though you feel like it's a performance, like it is very real and very authentic.
Yes.
It doesn't matter if it's a performance. And I think that's probably a question
That's
is like
my point.
just doesn't matter. Like sometimes if it's a performance or not, if you are doing the right thing
Or the
Well,
wrong
that's-
thing.
or the wrong thing,
You're
and causing
still
harm,
doing the
it
right
doesn't
or wrong
matter
thing.
because what you view as a performance, someone else views as completely authentic.
Right.
Perception is reality, people.
Yeah, and so because I think you're right. I think this is a moment where Tenzin shows up and says, I'm going to putting my teacher pants on, and like this is I'm putting my
Pants?
teacher robe. He's
Ah?
like, they were mustache wax. I don't know. And so he shows up and
You know he uses beard oil.
because there are moments of authenticity in that, because the moment that speaks to me too is when Milo says like it's lonely being the alpha lemur, and Tenzin goes it is. You're like, that is such a real moment for Tenzin, where I'm like, dude, I want to hug you, bud.
Well, that was
Like,
what
that's just
sold.
I
That was
want
what
to-
sold me that he was doing this to prove that that Korra hadn't written him off. Like he was proving to himself that he could teach. And at the end, he sees that like, oh, he can, but is this getting the results you want? This particular method of teaching that you've been using.
And so maybe like my takeaway from this conversation might be like, performance or not, like it just is if.
Fake it till you make it is kind of real.
It
well,
is.
and it
it's
is-
scientifically real.
Sometimes I'm gonna feel like I'm performing, and sometimes I'm not gonna feel like I'm performing, and sometimes, but like my intent or the way that I move into that is irrelevant to whatever the impact is, and I think that that's where my takeaway with performing might be.
I am fascinated by this because, so for me personally in my life, I have been struggling a lot with one of my favorite authors being very problematic recently.
Love
Is
that.
this
Love
someone
that.
who might like a.
It's
might have
Joanne Rowling. It's Joanne
okay,
Rowling.
great.
Yeah. Cool.
And I have personally been able to ensure that I do not financially contribute to her future legacy. That is a little bit easier to do now than it will be soon when there's a new movie and all this other stuff going on.
If it makes you feel better, like the second Fantastic Beasts movie was bad.
So bad. Oh my god, it's
So,
terrible. Like
that helps.
objectively bad. But I wonder about performativity. Like if you claim to be an ally for trans people, but you've heard how some trans people are directly affected by her views and legitimately her money. She is contributing actively. Like
She's causing harm.
right, she is actively causing harm. At what point, like, is that performative allyship that you're exhibiting? Is
I
that
agree.
harmful?
I agree. 100% agree with this. Yeah.
And that's what I've personally been struggling with a lot recently because Harry Potter was such a huge part of my childhood. It's what made me a reader and a critical thinker,
And it's-
ironically. Like
Another thing that comes up for me is, I think about this question with Chick-fil-A because I love Chick-fil-A and the chicken nuggies, right? They're so good. And I was addicted to them in college. And then that's the hate chicken when it comes to them supporting foundations and organizations that are anti-LGBT. And it's one of those things where it's like, oh, but this one chicken sandwich, is it like, I'm not
is
gonna,
this
like,
$7
is
really?
this $7
Yeah.
really going? And the answer to me, like I've come down on, is like, no, I will not pay for Chick-fil-A anymore. That is against, here we are. Chick-fil-A, you can also sponsor us.
No, I'm
We
not-
will say no.
I will not take Chick-fil-A money.
But that's another example, right? It's like, well, I'm gonna perform and say, like, these are all the things we say on the podcast. But then, if we were then to take sponsorship from an organization that does something like that, that's like.
You'd be fascinated at who takes money from who.
Well, but that's exactly my point, right? It's
Right.
just like this. We live in this world, and if we aren't aware and asking questions around like what people are actually doing versus what people are saying they're doing, we're missing out. And it's tough, like, because that's what politicians do, which is why you should research your politicians.
Yeah. And research companies. Companies hide within
yes.
companies, hide within other companies.
Yes.
Well, and then we all get trapped because there's really no ethical consumption under capitalism.
Well,
so,
and then which
like,
well, and it
but
leads
we
you
have to
to,
live
like,
within that system.
is
right
it
now.
ethically responsible for me to own a smartphone? Right. That's another question. There's a whole lot. Okay, but anyway, we could go into this long, deep.
That's a much deeper
I would,
conversation.
and like not to make light of any situation, because I honestly hate Chick-fil-A, but I would also argue it's like tier 4 of like chicken sandwiches.
Thank you. I agree. Popeyes
I would so much rather.
my-
Yeah,
Well, I don't buy it anymore,
I'd rather have
y'all.
Popeyes. I'd rather have Zaxby's. I'd rather have Bojangles.
Zaxby's, yes. Popeyes, fine. Yeah, I'm gonna say it. It's fine.
No.
Wow, that take is hotter than the chicken.
There's just so many
y'all,
other better chicken sandwiches. I'd rather
Tell you what,
Rise chicken
I
biscuits.
make a dope fried chicken sandwich. It is so good.
Well, if I have not done all 4 elements yet and I get to come back, I would love a chicken sandwich.
Yeah, you make it to 4, we can do dinner. That sounds.
only if you're rounding out your elements. If we realize that
Right.
you're like,
You've been water all 3 times.
so yeah. Anything else we want to hit on this specific episode before we jump into the other practices that we have today?
I do want to talk about Korra a little bit in that I feel like she is one of the least performative characters. I feel that she is consistently authentically herself, and for better or for worse, that she goes with her first draft because
Well, and I think that's again. I want to differentiate and challenge that a little bit. I think you're right. I'm agreeing with you and qualifying a little bit. Like I think she is 100% acting on this first draft the whole time. But I think again that's no different than comparing it to you, who was acting through your third draft.
Sure.
Right. Both of those I think are you. Right. And for Korra, I guess my theory for this one is to somewhat sidestep is I think my question is what when she was really young caused her to feel the need to act like as though she were able to take down the world. Right?
Are we ready to talk about how labeling kids gifted at a really young age is problematic and it puts undue pressure on them for the rest of their lives?
I think that's part of it. I also think it's she heard what the Avatar is. She realized that I wonder if she felt patriarchal notions from the White Lotus, who this bunch of men walk in the room and say, "Is your child the Avatar really?" And like, "Oh, a girl," right?
And then the second it happens, she's at the orders of men, Aang and and her
Tenzin,
father
and
Tenzin, who have all said, "You will stay here and
Yes.
train this way."
And it leads her to performing a certain way that becomes that's who she is.
Well, she only knows how to use her hammer. Like,
Yeah. And so I think performing over time is what led her to this version of Korra. And what we're seeing is, again, a result of when we put people in a box and force them to perform a certain way, it's going to shape who that person is over time.
I love Korra so much as a character. I think that all these things are so important to who she is. It's vital to who she is that she discovered her avatarness herself.
Yeah.
Nobody told her.
Yeah.
She discovered it at a quarter of the age that you normally are.
Mm-hmm.
When she's 4 or 5.
Yeah.
When she finds out herself that she can firebend.
Yeah, she knew.
Right.
I'm the Avatar. You gotta
kicks
deal
the
with
wall
it.
down.
There was no playing with relics. There was
Nope.
doing the
Didn't need
test.
it.
It was fire, water, air, baby belly.
Exactly. And you usually have to find out at 16. Like Roku had no idea until Sozin and his birthday party.
And Aang didn't know until he was told either.
And he was told early.
Yeah.
Like,
Kyoshi found out late.
Indeed.
I love the book so much.
I still haven't read the last
They're
one.
so good.
I'm where you are. I read the first one, and I intended to read this Shadow of Kyoshi, but then X-Men comics got really good again, so I've been busy.
I
Had
love
things
both
to do.
of them.
Star Wars has taken up my time this year.
I also really like, this is again no need to plug this, but I really like the audio versions of them
Yeah,
too.
I think
they were
they're really
very good. Yeah.
That narrator, FCE? Or
That's
is
the
that
author, yeah. I don't remember the narrator.
She's great, though.
Yeah, she did a great job. Agreed. Anyway, Audible, you can sponsor us. We would accept.
Yeah, and then it's Amazon and Jeff Bezos.
Yeah.
And just,
Yeah.
Everybody's a problematic.
Oh no, we can't be sponsored at all. Patrons, that leads us to you. BNB_pod.
Please don't be problematic.
Yeah. Yeah, don't be problematic, one, but also, we accept your support, but know that we don't require your support. And that is performative language.
Mash that subscribe button.
It is both true, and I'm saying it in order to accomplish social change. And that is what performative language is.
fantastic. We're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back with a few of our favorite
cutting me
exercises.
off. He's cutting me off. No,
We'll
it was
be right
just, it was
back.
such a good button.
Welcome back
Welcome
from our
back.
little break. We got a few new things to get into.
Yeah.
And the first thing we do is our new segment, and I forgot that I was tasked with coming up with a name for this.
So we're doing Nooks and Crannies.
We are not. We're not.
It's not
We're not.
happening.
That's not what
I
it is. That's
really
not what it
would
is.
like not to do that.
See, we're not naming it that. So we're gonna call it Yays and Whoopsies.
Whoopsie and Cranny rhyme.
No.
What?
No. They are called whoopsies. Those are moments in the shows we don't like. The ones we do like are yays. And,
Oh, wait, so I
and you have to do like the hands in there like yay.
people, they can't see the hands in the
But
air.
They
We'll
know,
know.
they know, we'll know, and now they'll know. So our yays and our whoopsies.
This is why we need the YouTube channel right here, is for this
I
moment
don't have
right
that type
here.
of commitment level.
No.
I've only been doing this show for 4 years.
Yeah.
I only do this on the condition that nobody knows what I look like. So,
All right, so we'll go with our yays and our whoopsies.
I'm sorry, you have to
whoopsies.
do yays again because you didn't put your hands
There were
in
no
there.
hands.
Yays and our whoopsies. Let's just get to it. All right, so Ben, what was your yay and your whoopsie?
Yeah, so I think for my
I think I nailed it.
yay
Yeah.
was General Iroh. Because I really love this moment where it seems like he is able to process and hear out what's going on. It seems like there's a trust level with Korra, and he's able to discern when and how he can use the system to his advantage. Even when, and I think that when we are a part of a system that can be problematic, like most of them, what happens is we need to be able to sometimes lean into the rules of the system in order to maintain what we need to maintain.
Right.
And I think being able to watch General Iroh navigate that, and then he's like, okay, my shoes are tied. I can't do this now.
right, my hands are legally tied.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think shoes are tied as the.
They were tied
is the-
together,
is the
like as
turn
in he
of
couldn't
phrase
move
that
any further
people-
because he would trip if he did. It was tied together. So that's my cranny now.
No,
Because
it's a whoopsie. It's a whoopsie.
it's a cranny in the conversation.
I 1000%
Ben.
reject the phrase "my cranny" is.
We have to stop saying it's a whoopsie. It's now a whoopsie.
Whoopsie!
The default. We can think
Sorry,
of better name
sorry,
later, but
sorry.
the default will be
Whoopsie!
whoopsie.
I
Yep.
said cranny.
Stop saying it. It's bad. I don't. Okay. Cameron.
Hey, have you been to the farmer's market and gotten those cranny smiths?
I hate it. 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 It is called a whoopsie.
What is your whoopsie? I'm sorry.
Oh no, I didn't. We were gonna hear everybody's note.
Oh,
first.
we're doing. No, they're called yays.
Yays and whoopsies. It's taking too long. Cameron, what is your yay?
My yay.
You didn't do it. The hands. Sunshine.
Oh my goodness, Ben.
You said we
Ben.
needed to do it, and you didn't wave
Ben.
your hands.
You're in timeout. I'm muting you for 2 minutes. Your microphone's about to be turned off for a minute. Let Cameron speak.
Fully. Maybe this will get me soft canceled. My yay for the episode is Bolin in the costume for Nuktuk. I have a huge crush on Bolin, and
So on Bolin or on Nuktuk?
Bolin.
Okay.
But in the Nuktuk costume, that was my yay.
The
for
question
the episode. My
is,
yay
when Bolin
the
acts as
episode.
Nuktuk,
Nope.
Is he
Next
Nuktuk?
episode. We have lots to talk about Bolin and his behavior next episode.
but
propaganda.
Consent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll do our Bolin slander next.
Something to
episode
look
for
forward
sure.
to next time. But we're picking the hot bod is
1000%.
is-
Bolin is my himbo king, and
Love it.
I love him. But another yay for me. Another yay for me.
There it
this
is.
episode was Korra leading something peaceful.
trying to go about it through the system.
She put her hammer away.
She tried.
For the first time in forever.
And somebody else blew up buildings.
Yeah. That's actually going to be my whoopsie is the fact that it seems like
What
these
was your-
characters.
what
I'll
was
get
your
to my
yay?
yay soon.
So you're out of
But
order. You still didn't do the hands.
Oh my goodness, Ben.
You said that they would know because we were going to say something.
You did say.
Ben, you've been muted. You are. Your dial has
Ben,
been
you're on
turned
mute.
down. So, calm down. Well, your behavior will dictate whether or not I turn you back up. No one heard that because you're on mute. But I think one of the things that it seems like a lot of these characters so often go to violence as the very first step. And that's something that I don't love to see. And that's just something that I think happens over and over again in this episode, whether it's let's sell the war machines and let's make sure we're fighting and let's take an army down there and let's
bypass authority and go directly to the soldiers.
right. And so I think that's my whoopsie. My yay is just the way that Tenzin shows up and the way that he's present. And I don't think he's perfect in every sense of the way that he's teaching, but I don't think you have to be. I think
Right,
him being there, him being present in that moment, him learning, and I feel like he listens really well.
A show about a perfect character would be the most boring show in history.
Correct, and he's not. But he shows up, and he's super present in this moment. And I love the Milo bonding time that happens there. And so, yeah, that makes me feel good on the inside.
Another yay is that we went a whole episode with Milo with no fart jokes. That's my yay.
You don't like
that's
the
actually
flashlights?
that's actually one of my whoopsies.
Or is it a cranny?
No, Ben, what is your?
You turned his mic back on. You.
Or did you turn it off? Am I
No,
still
it's back
muted?
on. No,
Okay.
Ben. So that you've said your yay. What's your whoopsie?
My whoopsie is there's just a lot of angst in this episode. This is like a drama episode. Very drama.
Oh, the relationship drama was.
It's drama.
It's never
I
been
don't-
where Avatar excels.
I watched the OC for that, so not. That's where I want it.
Well, and there's just a lot of drama. This whole like even the twins and like another thing that bums me out is this cranny-ish behavior that we get from Unalaq and the twins around. Like I really want the twins to question their father a little bit and just be like I need you to.
I want them to respect
what is going on
boundaries.
here around like listening and like what are they gaining from this, what's going through their head and how did this brainwashing occur, because it just seems like they're robot puppets.
This is the first episode we see genuine emotion from one of them.
Eska.
Yeah, from Aubrey Plaza's character. I mean, it's not a positive emotion, but it is the first time they've broken out of their "we are twin robots" persona.
Yeah.
Emotions are emotions,
Yeah.
But
Even when we
I've been
hide
through
them.
breakups, and murder has never
And
really crossed my mind on any of them.
Does Unalak seem like Father of the Year?
No.
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 Not even performatively.
No.
Nah, he's like a super cranny.
You're about to get put in timeout for the rest of the episode.
My whoopsie is that just the continued way that some of the female characters are written or underwritten.
Yeah. Which happens
Yes.
weirdly a lot in this series sometimes.
Well, it's
that is
not-
about a female lead character.
It brings up how many women were in the writer's room and like, and then how many women along the way, signed off on this characterization, or not just Eska, but the way Julie is very quiet, subservient for now. Interesting.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah. All right, Sunshine, do the thing.
Do the thing. We're up to
Do the thing.
we are up to devotion, and
Yeah.
we are going through the lens of water, the element
are.
of water.
Indeed.
And so, who's got to focus? Who wants to go?
Well, here's what I'm thinking. So, I'm thinking about performance, and I'm thinking about the question that I raised earlier was how do we, I want to cultivate awareness around how do we know, because we know that when we're more aware, we are better, we have more agency, we can make better decisions, and we can better live into the person that we want to be, our favorite self, so to speak. And I'm thinking about how water has the capacity in its various forms to shape the world. For instance, when you boil water and you put a carrot into it, it makes the carrot soft. When you put a hard boil, like a hard egg shell into it, and then all of a sudden it makes the inside hard. So boiling water has the capacity to do both, right? And so I need to be mindful about why am I boiling, when I'm boiling, and who am I affecting through that. And I need to be aware of how my performance as boiling water affects the people that are around me. Like, who are the eggs and who are
that
the
you
carrots,
you could soften someone and harden
right?
somebody else.
Exactly. And then on the other hand, when I am boiling, and I also need to be aware of when there is coffee around that is changing my nature as well, right? And so when you put boiling water and coffee together, what do you get? The water itself is changed. And so I need to realize when I'm being surrounded by people who are changing me, noticing that, what is that like? I need to be around and notice how I am changing others through my performance. And so again, I'm like, how do I cultivate this awareness around what these various parts of who I am and what I'm doing are affecting the world? And so my to-do is to figure out what that red flag is for me. Is oh, this is me performing.
Yeah.
This is, and how, and then pause and then ask some questions. And so I'm going to try and identify what that red flag is for me, or that flag in general. And then I'm going to try and build some awareness around that this week.
And I think we had almost incredibly similar devotions kind of thought processes. Mine came from the sense that water is a cleaner, right? It has the ability to purify and make things clean, and
Universal solvent.
that's right.
Let
And
the rain fall down.
that's
Wake
right.
My dreams.
Hillary Duff. What a poet. And so I think for me, that question itself can be cleansing. The question of why am I doing this? The question of what is the impact potentially going to be if I'm performing in this way? Allowing that question, that awareness piece to be able to clean up messes or to keep messes from happening in the first place is one that I need to think on. And so
Sounds a lot like a Nook to me. Love it.
it's a big yay.
Yay! I want everyone out there to know that I suggested presence and coal and was overruled.
Not this week.
I said no such thing about overruling it.
You said no, Sunshine
No,
needs
listen,
to make
with
it up.
this
It has to be
in-
Sunshine's
Go
thing.
back and listen to the end of the last episode, and
goodness.
Sunshine said he would think of a good one, and I I asked him, "Are you sure you're going to remember?"
We've
And he's
had-
like, "Okay, sure, I'll do it." And then he
I
forgot, and so
think
here we are.
We have a lot of mileage to get out of yays and whoopsies, and I think that we're having fun with it. Okay?
I just have to say, this
Or
Nooks
are we
and
having fun
Crannies
with
talk
Nooks and
that is
Crannies?
never ceasing from you does not feel very validating of Presence and Cole, okay?
I love presents.
Cameron, what does
Yes?
water mean to you?
So, again, I thought about water being a versatile substance. It can be ice, it can be steam, and I wanted to think about, specifically for me, realizing that my first draft may not be the best draft. Sometimes I need to be steam for a certain situation, or sometimes I need to be ice for a certain situation, but that doesn't mean I'm not water. Like, it can still be authentic to think about the best response to a scenario and do that rather than take your first draft, your Korra draft, and run with it.
Yeah, you gotta leverage and be water in all of the water cycle.
Yeah.
Right? And then if you realize, oh, my steam isn't helpful in this situation, I need to adapt.
Ice can't water plants.
You're still gonna be water.
Eventually, it will. Eventually, like.
Good talk. Yeah.
Like put a little ice cube in my succulents because I just leave it there, and
And kill them. Yep.
Is that how you water them, though?
I don't have any more succulents, so I can't.
Is that because you tried to water them with ice?
We're learning.
Yeah.
Speaking of learning,
Whoopsie.
let's get to my gratitude.
Sounds a lot like coal to me.
Who am I grateful for? I'm grateful for Milo, and I think his ability to want to learn a new skill, for his ability to take care of the animals that are in his circle of influence. He is putting in the work to make sure that he is able to support them and learn that skill, and willingness to take feedback through that process. And I love learning new things, and I love that being a focus. And I think that this is a moment we get to say that's a fun moment for Milo, and I like it. So I'm grateful for him through this episode because of learning new things. So
I'm always
maybe my
grateful for
devotion will be
Milo.
learning how to take
I
care of
love
succulents.
Milo.
Yeah, Milo. All right, Cameron. Who are you grateful for?
I'm grateful for so many characters in this show, but specifically this episode, I am really grateful for Korra. She, for one of the first times in her character arc, leads in a way that is not her first instinct. What we've seen from Korra is a instant response for violence or physical resolutions to problems. And this episode, she leads a peaceful protest march. And so I'm grateful for Korra, and that's not something 2016 Cameron ever thought I would say, but here we are.
Here we are.
It's been a life-changing few years. New perspective.
Here we are. Man. Okay. So for me, I am grateful for Mako. And, not because I think he's the best example of decision making, but I do think that I really appreciate his competing obligations and the choices and the hard spot that he was put in this episode. And I'm really grateful for watching that, feeling annoyed and judgmental of Mako, because what that led me to do is be introspective. Because when we are judgmental of others, that is an area in which we are vulnerable to judgment and from our own self. And so I realized that I was like, oh man, this is something that I've had to do, and you can't win in this situation. And it's hard, because I have a lot of gratitude for this moment giving me a chance to reflect. And so thank you, Mako, for having competing ethical obligations and making a really tough choice that I don't know that I would have given with, but who knows. I'm grateful.
Well, y'all, that's the end of our episode today. Thank y'all so much for being here, Cameron. Always a pleasure to have you in the studio.
Always happy to be here. Thank you guys so much.
And we'll figure out what your next element needs to be, and we'll plan accordingly.
No, a Twitter person, someone who listens to the podcast.
No,
is gonna
again, call
figure
the
this
phone
out.
lines.
Yeah, like if you email this
We're
to
standing
us,
by.
arkofE@gmail.com. You can even send us a voicemail of you reporting these out, and we will put it on the episode if it comes. But yeah, yeehaw.
Fantastic. Y'all, I'm Sunshine Mayfield,
This has been Pruitt.
and this has been Bending Not Breaking. Thank you for listening.
Bye-bye.